Well, first of all, it felt big. I was aware that I was in the presence of something very big. If it was a person, we might call that a master. Like I was aware that I wasn't just talking to a little bird on a tree. There was a presence that came along with the message, and I just made myself receptive to what was coming in. Hi, this is Madii Kasem, and this is your superior self.
It sounds like you've done that before, Madie.
Oh, back in the day,
Let me hear
when
that. Let me hear that radio voice.
super young, yeah, I did some radio fun down in Southern California. And the best part about that, I think, was being exposed to yoga before anybody had heard of it, and some consciousness raising and some plant medicine.
Oh, what was that like back when you were working in the radio station, being exposed to yoga and plant medicine? Like, what was the vibe? Like, what was the zeitgeist?
Well, I grew up in a very conservative family, so I found cool. This was cool. Everyone was cool. The radio station was cool. People were living with more interesting values. People were questioning conservative values. And people were being much more honest, I felt, and speaking to each other about how they really felt. And it was a magical time for me. I shifted from that. I'm really grateful I had that experience when I was young.
Sure. I love listening to that story, right? Like, did you ever try any plant-based medicine?
Back then,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it circulated around.
It circulated around. It made its way to me.
Made its way around. Like there were some months when I was in Southern California, I lived in a shared house with other radio people in Lakeside, east of San Diego. And the station was called KCBQ, probably still there. And it had a long enough range to reach San Diego. So there were a lot of cool people hanging out between San Diego and Lakeside. And we'd have parties, industry parties, with radio folks talking radio. They feel like a family. People interact as if it's almost an extended family. Up here in Canada, my radio friends from way back in those days still get together. They still hang out. They still have parties where they see each other and get together like annually for events, for
Mhm.
parties.
Are you still part of the cool crowd?
No, no. I moved into a spiritual direction. So I don't know how many of those folks are spiritual, but they're fun and they're cool and they're good people.
Sure, absolutely. I
Hmm.
feel like they were on to something, right? Like especially with the plant-based medicines. I don't know what that was, right? Like, are you referring to like psychedelics?
Yeah, well, I mean, we did have a test kit in the house for psychedelics. Um, if people decided they were going to do psychedelics, we cleared our schedules of everything else. We made sure we knew what the environment was going to be. We controlled the environment. And then we tested it. Somebody tested it and made sure it was pure. And, then we gave ourselves a whole weekend, even though we weren't using the psychedelics the whole weekend. But
Hmm.
we booked out a whole weekend to have the experience, and then we were there for each other if anything went funny for anybody.
So
Yeah.
you had sitters, right? You had people that were there to create a safe environment.
I lived in a house with shared people, all radio people. So what we did was some of us got together with our friends down there and said, hey, what are you paying for your rent? Here's what we're paying for our rent. What if we put our rent together? What could we get? And back in 1969 or 70, that got you a big house with a swimming pool and a gardener in the foothills east
Hmm.
of San Diego.
What were those experiences like, right? When you partook in those experiences,
Yeah, well, I
was
only
it?
did it when I was down there. Like, when I moved back to Canada, I was finished with that. But one thing it does is it teaches you that consciousness is not intellect. It teaches you that you've got a reality base beyond the physical body and beyond the intellect as the brain. We can access consciousness, and that's the best part of that. I think that's why psychedelics are being used medicinally today for people who have mental health issues, because it can reach people in at a level of consciousness. And maybe
Was that your spiritual awakening?
yeah, probably my spiritual, but I didn't know about that at the time.
Sure.
Yeah. Mhm.
What was do you remember any unique experiences with that?
Not really, but I know
No.
that when I came back to Canada, I landed a radio commercial right away. And they told it was a public service announcement to get kids off of drugs. And they said I was the only person auditioning who could properly read the names of drugs. And I got the
You know
commercial.
the lexicon, you're good, right? Like you can pronounce
You know
psilocybin.
what you are doing? Yeah,
That's
psilocybin,
awesome.
LSD.
Yeah, LSD, right? So when you left Cali, where did you end up next?
So then I put on a backpack. So then, pardon me, I decided that I wanted to find something alternative to spend my life in. And I found herbology, the medicinal properties of plants. And I put on a backpack and went out to British Columbia, so back to the West Coast, where I could live year round easily without a green card. And I joined a community of herbalists. So I lived with an intentional community of herbalists on the West Coast.
Wow,
And that was consciousness raising in a different way.
that's
Mhm.
awesome. Well, how did we get to right now, right? Where you're having these powerful conversations with nature and animals. Like how has this developed for you?
Yeah, so I didn't really know about animal communication. I did train when I was there on the West Coast, trained with a medium, a trance medium in energy healing. So before there were modalities, before anyone had heard of Reiki, I did energy healing. And I was trained by my beautiful teacher, Tola Haynes, who is a minister, and like I said, a trance medium. And so people would say, "Oh, I believe in that. What do you call it?" I'd say, "It's just energy healing." And it wasn't a thing yet, and there were no modalities. And so I ended up being an elementary teacher to create what I wanted for my children in terms of comfort and a regular income and a paycheck. And I had a bunch of degrees by the time I was much later and married and having kids. So I had invested a lot of energy into energy healing. And I thought when I finish with my teaching days, I'll be an energy healer. So there I was in a condo on my own, no longer in the marriage. The kids didn't need me as much anymore. And I set up a shingle as an energy healer. I also taught Ho'oponopono, an energetic clearing system, emotional clearing system that reaches the subconscious, that I trained in from the originator in Hawaii, Morrnah Simeona, the late Morrnah Simeona. And I had trained in angelic meditation. So I put out a shingle, I'm going to be an energy healer, angelic meditation teacher, and facilitator for Ho'oponopono. And I was doing this out of a local yoga studio and having so much fun and generating an additional income. And that's how I saw myself, as an energy healer with these offerings. And then a red-tailed hawk showed up outside the window of this condo. And I have to tell you, the condo was in Toronto, in the city of Toronto, filled with big buildings. And I was in a 5-story steel building. And this red-tailed hawk kept hanging out outside my window. And I didn't know about other modalities. I didn't know about shamanic journey. I didn't know about animal communication. But the universe sort of delivered it to me. And I think the universe delivered the hawk to me. So what I mean by that is, sometimes we just get happy surprises in our lives and synchronicities. And it was a bunch of those. So someone in Delaware emailed me and asked for an angel card reading. And she offered an Akashic record reading. And we did an exchange. And I had my questions prepared. And when we were done, I'm done. Okay, wonderful. Great Akashic record reading. My first time having that. And it was a great experience. And Suzanne said, Madie, I can go a few more minutes if you like. I'm not that tired. And I thought, well, who would say no to that? But I'm finished my prepared questions. But there's that hawk. Like how weird is that when that happens? A psychic once told me it's often the last question in a reading that has the big impact. So that's how it was. It was this extra add-on I hadn't planned for. And I told the Akashic record reader, Suzanne West, who's excellent, by the way, okay, there's this hawk that's showing up outside my window. And she sends me love through the window, and I send her love through the window. What is that? And in my Akashic record reading, I was told, you can ask her if she wants to increase the communication. And I'm like, what else is there? So, and I was told, and don't expect it to necessarily be in pictures or in words. And again, what else is there? So the hawk arrives, and I said, do you want to increase the communication? And I felt this positive wave across me, and it was a yes. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I have no technique, but I know you can send love or prayer without ever interfering in the life path of someone else. So that's what I did. I just opened my heart and I sent her all my love. And then reality changed. There were no drugs involved. Better than any psychedelic trip, I was in a different reality. And little blue dots went from my heart over to the hawk and back to me. And as long as those were in motion, these little blue lights, I could talk to her telepathically. So how did that happen? Who organized the light show? I don't know. And so I said to her, this is my nest. We are 3. And I imagined my adult kids there with me and 2 kids. I wasn't with a husband anymore. So we are 3. I said, this is my nest. I have 2, meaning my kids. I have 2. What have you? And she said, we are 3. We fly as one. And then I cried.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. So you're hearing all of these as thought messages, like telepathic communications?
Pardon?
I said you're hearing all of these as like thoughts in your brain, like that the hawk is speaking to you as a thought. Like, you know what I mean? Like communication in between like minds, right? Like, do you hear a voice in your brain? Like, is it, or in your head? Or is it more of a thought that's popping up that isn't yours?
With that hawk, there were a number of different ways I received her information. That first time, as long as the blue lights were in motion, it was telepathic, like a conversation, as in words. And I heard it inside my system. It resonated in my brain, and I felt it in my body, like I knew these were her words, not my words. And I have trained a lot of people over the last 8 years in nature communication. And I would say there is a variety of ways that we are set up to receive the communication from animals and other species in nature. Mike, I hope you don't mind me mentioning you, but there's this guy, Mike, who is really good at it now. And when Mike would share what he is receiving, to me, it sounded like he was reading a text message. It's just is it like they're keyboarding to you, Mike? Like, it's just like a text message coming in. And some people tell me they get a picture, an image, or a deep feeling. And so I teach them how to unpack that because the message is inside that.
Wow, that's amazing. I know I've seen some of your work. I think you forwarded me the poem that you wrote that just got published. I think I do have that. And we also had a pretty amazing conversation with the Westernly Wind that you connected with for me. I was just like so taken back by it and how accurate it was, right? Like just for me as a person, as an individual, and how it resonated, the message, overall message resonated with me. So I was like, holy crap, like you are definitely connecting with something and it's resonating, and the message I can apply to my life immediately. Like it was just insane to me.
I'm really glad that it, held meaning for you. That's really good and makes me happy. And I love it when we can talk to more interesting, greater things in nature. A lot of my work is with helping people with their pet companions. And I love that too. I have pet companions. But it's really special to have an opportunity to talk with, the wind or water in this location, Mother Earth, who are you in this location? It's really special to me, and I love that.
Now, when you get those messages, do the voices change at all? Like do you hear a voice, or like is it like when you connected with Westernly Wind for me? Like what did that sound like?
Well, first of all, it felt big. I was aware that I was in the presence of something very big. If it was a person, we might call that a master. Like I was aware that I wasn't just talking to a little bird on a tree. There was a presence that came along with the message, and I just made myself receptive to what was coming in. And what helps is if we don't have a lot of baggage. I haven't studied the winds, and it makes it easier maybe to hear what the Westerly Wind wants to say because I'm open and receptive. It also helps for people who want to try this at home. If you don't have any reason other than to hear, other than to listen, other than to be in communication. And I find that nature is available to us when we come forward. I guess you'd call it with a pure and open heart, like you don't have a reason to control the other or to exploit the other or to change the other. You're just there for each other. And anybody can do this. It's like playing the piano. Some people are born very gifted and musical, and some people are tone deaf and they're going to have to really work at it hard, and maybe it's not what they want to develop, but everybody can learn to do it because it's just like when I opened my heart to the hawk and that turned out to be and sent her love, and that turned out to be how we could communicate. I like to say to people, if you have a heart, you can do it.
If you have a heart, you can do it. And the probability is you have a heart, right? You're listening to this, you have a heart.
Yeah.
So you can do it. What's the process, right? Like how do you teach your students to do this? Like have an open heart, but that's just not it, right? Like you have to do other things too, maybe to quiet that mind.
Do you want to try?
Sure.
Okay, who do you want to talk to?
Let's talk to Mother Ocean.
Mother Ocean. Is that like one ocean, or like, can you name an ocean or a body of water?
Let's go with the Atlantic.
Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so here's what I would ask you to do, and what I will ask you to do. The technique is going to be, you're going to take 3 breaths in your own time. It's not a retention breath. It's just 3 breaths is usually enough for you to clear out whatever else is on your mind, like, paying attention to the time here, the clock, or whatever's happening in the background, or later on tonight or tomorrow. So you're going to clear all that out. So 3 breaths is usually enough to do that. And then I'm going to ask you to connect to your heart space and open your heart and send all your love to the Atlantic Ocean. And then we need a question, because what do we want to ask? So how about, do you want to ask for a message, or how are you today? I like icebreakers, like, is everything good with you? But you can just go in and ask a question.
An icebreaker in the ocean, right? Let's see, like what I don't know. Like, what do you ask the ocean?
How do you
right?
feel about, okay, we've been told ice. We've been told about melting ice in the North Atlantic, right? We're all told to worry about that. So let's ask the Atlantic Ocean, what's going on with the melting ice in the North Atlantic? Should we worry?
That's not a big question, is it? That's not
Right. And all the
global warming on my first attempt.
I'm hanging up now.
Oh man. No, I mean, let's try a little something, right? Like
It's fun about you go big.
yeah. Well, let's go a little bit big personally, right? Like let's go with what is it that I need to hear the most right now, right? Like in my journey on my path, like what would benefit me right now in this moment to hear from Mother Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean?
Okay. Do you want me to do it, or are we going to do it together?
We can do it together.
Okay. Please take 3 breaths. Connect into your heart center. We want our mind to still be active. Our intellect is going to do this work for us, but we're connecting into our heart center, our heart intelligence. And now I want you to open your heart, fill it with love, and feel all the love you have for the ocean we call Atlantic. And then we're going to ask the Atlantic Ocean, what do you need? What does it need to tell you? What are her messages for you in this moment?
I hear be still. Not like her.
Yes,
Be
nice.
still.
Okay, be still. Take a breath. Go a little deeper. Ask, how do I do that into that? How still? Where do I go?
It's going within, right? It's going within. Being quiet.
I feel she's also saying you can visualize yourself planting your feet at the bottom of the ocean. Not too many people have made it to the bottom of an ocean. But you can go there visually, you can go there in your mind really easily. So if you plant your feet at the bottom of the ocean, it's not like the surface, and things are very still. And I feel she's also saying that way you re-energize the waters in your body, in your system. So then your stillness is like an awakening process in a quiet way for the water that you're made up of, the ocean of you.
It's like the deeper you go, the more still it is, right?
Yes.
And the more knowledge, the more wisdom, like it's older down there, right? It's like where we originated from.
And less disturbed, less seen, fewer footprints of humanity there. But also I feel that there's this health component, Trey, like this health component where if you do this, and you connect down to, you feel yourself at the bottom of the ocean. This is the Atlantic Ocean speaking, that there's a health benefit for you, that the waters of your system, your own personal ocean, gets benefits somehow. We can ask how.
Yeah, how?
So, like you were saying, there's a much reduced footprint in the bottom of the ocean. It's quiet, it's ancient, and there's some kind of crystalline, like you can actually tap into something that is here on the planet that's for us, but the planet has been so disturbed on the surface by all of the activities we use in order to keep ourselves going, that to tap into this energy is, you know, a shortcut to a sacred place. And that you can receive enormous benefit at a really cellular level, at a crystalline cellular level. And it's fast. Like taking a dip in the ocean and you come out feeling very, you know, wet and rejuvenated fast. Like it doesn't take a long time to know you just had a dip in the ocean.
It's like a cleansing too, right? Like a, I don't know if temperature comes into play here, right? But it feels like the deeper you go, the colder it gets. And then that cold kind of, even though it can be painful, it's like rejuvenating to the system. It kind of clears out a lot of that heaviness.
Interesting. So we're going to thank the Atlantic Ocean. I always thank whoever we're speaking with. We thank the Atlantic Ocean. And when you're ready, we open our eyes and return to our regular place.
Where are we at right now? I don't even know where we're at. Are we still like, yeah. Are we not? I mean, that was amazing for me, right? Like just
well, I want to mention too that like the reason I ended it there is because you were getting your own transmission. So not that I wanted to cut you off, but I wanted to use that as an opportunity to illustrate to you that at that point you were, when you felt the cold and what you said about the rejuvenation of us through like the cold and what that does for you, and the benefit of that. I'm not sure the details you said. That was personal to you. That was your own transmission. That was you having a conversation with the Atlantic Ocean without me, without my involvement. You were on your own there. And I stopped it so that I could point that out to you. That was your own. You own it. And you can go back and talk to the Atlantic Ocean anytime, and probably anyone else you want to who is in nature, because you can do it. And that was your transmission.
so when you're, is that what the process looks like when you're with your students?
Yes, only yeah, that's very similar. We the difference is when I'm training people, we all go into complete silence. We don't talk about it. Everyone has their own absolutely silent communication. And then we all come back to the group and everybody shares what their experience was. And by hearing other people, it provides an opportunity for people who thought, well, I didn't really get anything. And then they go, well, but I did hear this or that, but I didn't think that was anything. And then so there's validation involved when beginners start to hear other beginners sharing what they did receive. And then then once you know the way in for yourself, you are familiar with how your system receives information, whether you're feeling it more or seeing it visually or hearing it. So we go into silence and then each person shares and we learn from each other. That's the method I use for groups.
I would love for you to share what we discussed with the Westernly wind, right? Like, because I would love to tap on some of those highlights just because it was so powerful for me and it hit home.
Okay.
If you had those notes, I don't know if you still have those notes or not,
I have the notes. They're personal to you. Can I share them?
Sure.
Okay. So once you get better at this, you're able to write and take notes as the being is speaking with you, communicating. So I wrote that the westerly wind said, your feet are planted firmly on the ground. You are grounded. And again, I have to say, the interesting thing about that was the wind, which is like above the ground, was talking about you being grounded, and the Atlantic Ocean, which is below the ground, well, below the ground where we are, above its own surface, was talking about you being grounded. So that's really big. The fact that you stay grounded and are able to go in consciousness to different places, enjoy talking to different people, and have your own experiences of being very sensitive and conscious. The fact that you stay grounded, that both those gigantic presences on the planet focused on that area, that's big. And you stretch and so the westerly wind said, you stretch yourself and this is your way. When you are stretched very far and stretched very thin, the air is rarefied. In this place, you have access to knowing. You are all about knowing, which, well, I mean, here we are. Is what you came here to do and to learn about. Think of it like a lighthouse, the light at the top of a lighthouse. You need to be part of an even larger media presence, one that already exists. Go for it. There will be contracts. Westerly wind.
Westerly wind.
Comes you to pieces.
And that was such an amazing, like, just, I don't know, just hearing that, right? Like, we had just met, and to be able to connect to something like that, to an element like that, and to hear a message that's so personalized for me, just really, because I've never experienced that before, like speaking to the elements. And you forwarded me some fabulous literature on the Westernly wind that I had no idea about, right? Like, so I don't know if you remember some of those article titles or not.
So I thought that was so fabulous too, because like I said, I don't talk to elements or, the grander beings very often. Often I'm speaking to people's pet companions and helping to solve problems that they're having. And, we're talking about small details in people's lives with the animals they share their lives with. So to go big and talk to the wind, on a snowy day, I might talk to snow, but it's not something that I do regularly. So it's a great experience for me. And I was so enthralled. So I looked it up. Who is the west wind, and what are the different indigenous teachings around the westerly wind? And so what I found was there is a British author in British literature, I think, I'm not going to say this right, Shelley. Shelley's a famous, British, I guess, poet. So he had a poem, Ode to the West Wind, and readers can see that the West Wind has become a symbol of the spirit. It represents the spirit of breaking the old world and the pursuit of the new order. The west wind is not only the wind in nature, but also embodies the revolutionary storm, which represents the irresistible force of the spirit. And I guess if we were literature students, we would know that. But, that's how it's been used in literature. And then from a website I found that's called Crystal Vaults, they said the west wind is brown, so represents the color brown, and it is the predominant wind of the earth, as the earth rotates, driving the winds to blow from west to east. And then brown again, it's like that's you being grounded again, right? It was talking about you being grounded, and it represents the earth, even though it's a wind, being grounded. That the things, pardon me, the themes come up again that are unique to you in the different ways from the different personalities you're speaking to. And yeah, and then I looked at, there's a woman, Beverly Two Feathers, with a site, Spirit Keeper of the West Winds. She writes that the grizzly bear is the spirit keeper of the West and is also chief counsel of all spirit keepers and animal totems. That's huge.
That is huge. And this all started, right? Like, I just randomly asked you, I was like, can you connect with the wind or something like that, right? And you were like, yeah. But then you said, like, which direction? I was like, I don't know. Let's westernly wind, right? And boom, all this knowledge came through. And then you look up all this literature, and you send this literature to me. Like, and then I was like blown away with just the content of it, right? Like, westernly, what the westernly wind represents, like, to me, spirituality. Like, I just guessed. I just said, okay, let's connect with the westernly wind and see what happens. And for those listening, you can just hear how powerful that is to, if someone were to hear that stuff, right? Like, everything, there's a thread that, like, connects the groundedness, right? Like, that has been the theme here, right? For me, in my spiritual walk, right? Being grounded, coming within, going within, and being in that space, and connect with Mother Nature, Mother Earth, Mother Ocean, and, like, be a part of the elements more, like, connect with what we're connected with, and, like, don't get caught up in the drama, right? Like, come back home to yourself. I think that's the message.
This is your path. And the lighthouse image, where was that? That this is your path. This is what you came here to do. They're just helping to reveal it to you, but it's who you are, and it's what you came here to do, and it's what you're doing. So I loved it when the wind said, when you stretch yourself very far, when you stretch yourself, you have access to knowing, and you are all about knowing. That's so beautiful. And it says so much, and it's unique to you. I love it.
I know. I love it too. I think that you have such a great gift, and I love that you're sharing it with the world, especially me, right? Because we all go through those rough spots in our lives where we just feel disconnected from everything. We're looking for that purpose in our lives to really commit to. And then, I think the main driver behind the anxiety is just the separation from it all, right? And to feel that, to feel the relief from that stress is to come back home, is to come back to who you are, and go within and find your own answers, and to listen, to not think that you're crazy when you get messages from entities or the elements, right? Like, and to really, to discern that for yourself, and how does it resonate with you. And teachers like yourself that are teaching students to do this and to help other people, like, I just feel like that's so important. I feel like your work, your poems, right? Like, I want you to read that poem too, if you can. I can't remember how long it is, but I think it's so beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to say about, people who are sensitive, who are picking up things. This is not, what I'm doing is not psychic work, because I looked into that with teachers when I was younger. And so just to differentiate, because there's a lot out here in this world of exploration beyond the five senses. So what I'm doing is telepathy, and this is telepathy of the heart. And so I'm actually listening, making myself available to listen to a pet companion, a dog, a cat, or the westerly wind, or the Atlantic Ocean. But I'm not doing a reading of their energy, which would be psychic work. It's not psychic work. And because it's not, we don't need protection. Nature is pure, so we don't need to protect ourselves. But if I was doing psychic work, I would want to, provide some sort of protective container for myself so that everything I was doing would be within, permission of my own soul. So just to say that, just to differentiate in the ways that we can open up beyond the five senses, I call this heart telepathy. So you want to hear just happen to have, I always have it with me now, the message from the birds of the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was meeting with my students, and I suggested we talk to the animals of the Ukraine, and some people were really hesitant, like that's going to be too sad for them. And I said, well, we're coming forward to provide support. We're going to say we're just here because we care about you and we love you. And then, do you want to talk to us? They might say, no, we're sort of busy surviving, but, we can send them all our love. And that's how we did it. And so I asked to speak to the birds of the Ukraine, and a representative came forward. And this is the message. We, the birds you call wild, the untamed, yet managed by you, we have been under attack since before this war. From pesticides, hunters, famines, radiation, and as a result of your wars. We watch your battles from the skies. We hear the engines roaring in the air, and we witness the carnage below. We have been falling from the skies just as you are now falling on the ground. We witness the attacks together with you. We are each under attack as one unit. Those who harm your species today are the same beings who harm us unceasingly. What is the way out? What is the resolve? Dream your dreams of freedom. Think of the world in harmony and peace. Make that magic manifest, for you are the manifestors, and we are your brethren. Like you humans on the ground, some of our winged ones will fly away from the smoke and noise. Others of us stay to bear witness, to lend support and give strength to smaller birds who cannot escape. Most of us are going as far away as we can. You can climb out of this, not by negotiation with those beings who bring you the war. What you cannot see is that your people and your enemies profit together. You must soar higher in consciousness. You must find the love that is the new world. In light we connect, in light we fly, in light we say adieu.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
I love it. And big announcement, as I told you earlier, and I'll tell all the people listening or watching that it was just accepted for publication into an anthology of poems, so many people will be able to read the message from the birds of the Ukraine. And I find that even though it's very solemn and grave, it's very hopeful, and it's an answer to how we get out of this war and other conflicts. We are the manifestors. We can create the world we want. And what you were saying earlier about, finding the silence, getting grounded, there are lots of ways that we can, as they say, soar higher in consciousness, climb out of this.
I love that. How does it feel to have that published, right? Like your work.
I cry.
Yeah, you cried, right? Because it's like validating for you, right?
And because, that day that you asked me to describe to you when the red-tailed hawk showed up outside my window and I had my first communication, I guess on some level I said yes, and I made a promise to the animals of the world that I will be a voice for them. And I've made good on that promise. If I die tomorrow, I have made good on that promise, because this poem has wings of its own and it's taking flight, and it will be available for people. So it's been wonderful to get to this place. I didn't know where it was going to take me, but and everyone, I mean, there are children being born who think they're talking to, rabbits and flowers that they see. And yes, they are. And if they just continue to do it, we will all create the world we want to live in
I love it.
cooperatively.
I love it. Madie, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. How can people reach you? How can they connect?
Oh, thank you. So I have a website. It's in Canada, so it ends in .ca, Madii.ca, Madii.ca. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity and to get to know you deeply on a personal level through communication with these messages. And I wish you well in all your adventures. Feel free to, practice again if you want. I'd love to do it if you want to try again and talk to someone else. It's why I'm getting out of bed in the morning these days. So I love this work.
That's awesome. Madie, I can't thank you enough for joining the show.
Thank you again.